Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We were discussing the fascinating topic of Vasanas, Samskars and the Vrittis. And we understood the Vasanas with reference to Shat Chakras, Vasanas with reference to Panchatattvas. And Patanjali is not just speaking about the Vasanas, but being a system called yoga, he speaks about handling, managing the whole net of vasanas, web of vasanas, mire of vasanas. So therefore there is a technology evolved by Patanjalas to handle these vasanas and manage them, arrange them, set them right, do any culturing, carving, sculpting, chiseling, shaping. So in practical aspects of handling these vasanas, there is another concept that comes in Yoga Shastra, is concept of Granthis. So Moksha Shastra, Adhyatma Shastra, Yoga Shastra speaks about something that is called Granthi Traya, the triad of Granthis. Granthis means a junction of knots. And Vasanas, tendencies, are junctions of knots. They are so complicated, so complex and variegated, and they get formed by several knots. And therefore the concept of Granthi Traya. And let us also understand, in the mysticism there is concept of handling the vasanas in three classes, which are complete body of vasanas. Although we saw that Shat Chakras means 6 kind of vasanas, Panchamabhutas means 5 kind of vasanas, and then now it gets reduced to 3, Granthi Traya. They are called Vishnu Granthi, Rudra Granthi, Brahma Granthi. And in management of it, again the master key is Om. Since as students of yoga we are aware of the fact that Om is a great master key for several things. So we know that Om is master key for Samadhis. If you recall the topic of Samprajnata Samadhi, Asamprajnata Samadhi, then Ashtanga Samadhi, we considered those Samyama concept, and now we are looking into those Samyamas. So there are Samadhis which deal with actually Vasana kshaya, Vasana Shamana. And therefore Patanjalas speak about the 3 junctions of vasanas, which of course are circumscribing the Shat Chakra vasanas, also circumscribing the Panchatattva vasanas. So for management's sake, from 6 to 5 to 3 they have come, and this is to show that they have a purpose of, or they are intending on handling, managing, arranging vasanas. So in Adhyatma you find this concept of Granthi Traya. And in esoteric anatomy, there is description of Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, Rudra Granthi. Now, as I said, the Om is again master key. It is master key for not only Samadhis, it is master key for not only for Samprajnata, Asamprajnata Samadhis, Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita, Rupa Samadhis, or form of Samadhis, but also master key for the Vasana Shamanam, Vasana kshaya. And let me tell you one dimension of this as to how Om works. The Om Pranava has 3 matras, 3 syllables, namely of A, U, Ma. And Upanishads go in great depth in describing, exploring each of the syllables, namely A, U, Ma. And yoga tells us about the marvelous fact, and perhaps this was also explained to you on earlier occasion, perhaps when we dealt with pranayama. The exhalation is so important instrument, weapon to counter vasanas and all that ensues from vasanas. And it can be experienced that exhalation is a nivrutti marga motivator. Exhalation not only relaxes, but it weans one away from gravities. And Vasana is one of the gravities. So the Om has 3 matras, A, U, Ma. And the A works exhalatively on the belly region. And in belly region, there is one Granthi, or knot junction, or you might say the junction of knots or knotty junctions. So it loosens those knots, loosens the Granthi by its several countless knots, because of which it becomes very, very complex and complicated. So point is, one locus for vasanas is belly. And then it is handled with the first syllable of Om, which is A, and that can be experienced by exhaling with prana kriya of A. And this zone of belly, abdominal zone, is also referred to as zone of vasanas. So it is a locus of vasanas, very important, potent locus of vasanas, the tendencies. And then with the second syllable, U, it works on the chest region, heart region. And heart is another locus of body of vasanas. And these are emotional vasanas. Many of our vasanas are because of our investment of vasanas, investment of sentiments, investments of love and hate, attachment and aversion. So some knots are formed in Hridaya Sthanam, the heart region. So the complexity of emotionality results into building up a vasana complex. So the belly region is described in Yoga Shastra as Vasana Pitha, and heart region is described as Bhavana Pitha. And the third syllable of Om is Ma or and the works in the brain region, which is ahamkara Pitha, identity locus. So these are the three zones with which the Om is associated within our embodiment, respectively Vasana Pitha, Bhavana Pitha, Ahamkara Pitha. Pitha means the locus, and therefore the exhalative pranayams work with Ma prana kriyas on these three zones of vasanas. Our Vishaya vasanas are stored and generated and created in the belly region, and the emotional are constituted in the heart region, and the identity aspects, vasanas, which are around the identity aspect, self-status, self-esteem, etc. They are in the brain region. So, one in the abdominal region, belly region, where we have the generative organs, it is called Prajanana location, that is progeny, location of progeny, and therefore it is rightly described as Brahma Granthi, because Brahma is the generator in the Trinity. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha. Brahma is generator. He is also called Prajapati, and therefore it is called Brahma Granthi. And the one in the heart region, it is described as Vishnu Granthi, and in the brain region the Rudra Granthi. But in different agamas these nomenclatures change, but the three nomenclatures remain: Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, Rudra Granthi. But in different agamas, different nomenclatures come to different loci. So Om and Granthi Traya, which circumcise entire body of our vasanas, are also described in the Yoga Shastra. Vasana Pitha, Bhavana Pitha, and Aham Pitha. So the vasanas are woven around our subjective entity. When your pronoun I is there, it has attachment of vasanas. When you have emotions, then again there is locus for vasanas. And when you have passion, there is again locus for vasanas. So that's how that concept of Granthi Traya has come. Vishnu Granthi, Brahma Granthi, Rudra Granthi. And the technology of yoga describes about handling them, arranging them suitably for spiritual process, spiritual progress, for Paramartha and for Adhyatma. So that was another point that which we should have taken note of when we were dealing with Vasana. Now one more thing that needs to be brought to notice is that Adhyatma proclaims and declares and often says about the fact that Vasanas are anadi, timeless, beginningless. They have no beginning. Vasanas have no beginning. They are beginningless. And Adhyatma reiterates this fact very, very, very often. It tries to alert us by telling us that the Vasanas are anadi. And in philosophical positions, we are familiar with the reality that if something is anadi, it is going to be ananta. So if something is beginningless, it often tends to be endless. So Adhyatma always tells us what is anadi, ananta. Something is anadi and therefore ananta. Say for example the entity of Atma. Atma Tattva, Atma, Anadi Ananta, Brahma, Anadi Ananta, Ishvara, Anadi Ananta, Prakriti, Anadi Ananta, Maya, Anadi Ananta. So, we repeatedly hear about this, that something is Anadi and therefore Ananta, or something is Anadi as well as Ananta, and therefore it forms an impression in our mind that whatever is anadi, it is ananta as well. So, a question, inquisitive mind puts this question that we repeatedly say about the fact that the vasanas are anadi. Now, if the vasanas are anadi, then obviously it can be deemed that vasanas are ananta as well. And where is the management? How do you manage something that is beginningless and endless? So with respect to vasanas, important thing to be noticed and noted is that vasanas are anadi but not ananta. Vasanas are anadi but santa. They are beginningless but they are not endless. They can end. If they had been endless, then the moksha would have got detonated. The very concept of moksha, liberation, nirvana would have got detonated. But Adhyatma speaks about moksha as well. It also rather praises and yogalizes the concept and very idea of motion, mukti. And if one thinks that vasanas are anadi, ananta, then moksha would be just an idea. It would never materialize, it would never actualize, it would never be there. So in order that such a position is not taken, Adhyatma also tells us that vasanas are anadi but not ananta, but they are anadi and santa. So as I just now said, in case of vasanas being endless, then the moksha would be just a fanciful idea, unrealistic idea. But Adhyatma Shastra, Moksha Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, Upasana Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Sankhya Shastra, they in a primary way postulate moksha, nirvana, liberation, kaivalya, etc. Emancipation. In order that they are not detonated, they take care to postulate and make necessary delineation to accept the reality that all the vasanas are anadi. Indeed they are anadi, they are not ananta, but they are santa. Otherwise all these shastras would have become redundant, useless, hollow. Which are these shastras? Adhyatma Shastra, Moksha Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, Upasana Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Sankhya Shastra. But in order they are to be held as meaningful, and they are indeed meaningful, we have to accept that vasanas, although beginningless, have an end. That's why something like Paramartha can stand firm grounds. Parama Purushartha can stand firm grounds. Because Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha are 4 Purusharthas, and the 4th one is Moksha. So it stands the ground very firmly by proving that vasanas are, although anadi, they are not ananta but they are santa. So Patanjalas also raise up this problem and they defeat it. That vasanas are anadi but not necessarily ananta. So this formidable problem has been solved in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Patanjala Darshanam, which is also important thing to take note of. The prima facie view that vasanas are endless is fallen flat by the argumentations provided by these philosophies of Yoga, Vedanta, Sankhya, and positions taken by Moksha Shastra, Adhyatma Shastra, Upasana Shastra, etc. So vasanas can be ended, and that is why there is something called Yoga Shastra becoming meaningful, and all the Paramarthika Shastras becoming meaningful. And they take care to also protect the Satkaryavada, because they are advocates of Satkaryavada, and they also skillfully prove that vasanas can be ended. Because if vasanas are existent, in Satkaryavada it is said that whatever is existent will never become extinct, and whatever is not existent will never become existent again or by any chance. That is one of the dimensions of Satkaryavada, which is embraced by Sankhyas and Vedantas and the Yoga as well. So the Satkaryavada is also maintained intact, and also this position is defeated in the philosophical systems that vasanas are anadi but not ananta. The vasanas, are they sat or asat? If they are sat, they should always exist. So whether vasanas are sat or asat, in the sense existent or non-existent, are vasanas merely an idea or do they really exist? Whether asat vasana is taken as sat. So what is really the position? So this important philosophical position is also handled by the philosophical system of Patanjalas. Now this seems to be a formidable question, because on one hand you cannot say that vasanas are untrue. If they are untrue, then why bother about it? Why be dreaded about it? So it has to be accepted that the vasanas are true. But if the vasanas are true and existent, then you cannot really end them. So this is a delicate and formidable problem, and this has been tackled by Patanjalas as also the other Astic philosophies such as Sankhya, Vedanta, Moksha Shastra and the other Shastras. So it is to be also examined whether the concepts that we are speaking about vasanas, are they sat or asat? Are they true or are they untrue? Are they existent or are they non-existent? So in defeating the position that vasanas are endless, Satkaryavada is also to be protected, and vasanas also have to be shown that they are endable, they can be ended. And this skill of Patanjala and the other Astic philosophical systems is really laudable. Now vasanas are anadi, this is beyond any doubt. It is nirvivada, there can be no argument about this fact. The vasanas are indeed beginningless. But let's try to understand how Astikas have taken position in general and Patanjalas in particular. They say Vasana is not an entity by itself, it is assemblement of certain things. Certain elements, certain things come together, and their coming together, their assemblement is a vasana. So vasana is actually assembly. So it is coming together or collocation or sangraha of some ghatakas. Some factors come together, and the assembly of these factors give vasanas a status or existence. In Patanjala system, it is called samvatyakaritvam, assembly. So let us understand the things where they are assembly of so many parts, like thing like objects like table, chair. These objects are assembly of so many parts. So you take anything like a table, a chair, apparatus, electrical apparatus, or any engineering piece such as bicycle, motorcycle, car. These are all assemblies of certain parts. Certain parts come together and give you these objects. Even a house. House is again assembly of so many things. There will be sand, there will be iron, there will be steel, there will be cement concrete, there will be wood, and they come together in particular form, assemblement, and you get the assembled object. So vasanas are really what? Say anything, that objects that you see in front of you, they are always assembly of so many components, so many parts, and their coming together becomes that particular object. For example, even a cup of tea, with which everyone is so familiar. Again, it is assembly of certain factors such as water, milk, sugar and tea leaves. They have to come together to give you that hot beverage of tea. So Patanjali, in his course of text, mentions about the factors which constitute vasanas. This comes in the Kaivalya Pada part of the text. There he says, Hetu, Phala, Ashraya, Alambana are the factors, and coming together of these four factors gives you vasana. So vasana is an assembly, and the components of it are Hetu, Phala, Ashraya, Alambana. Now you have a chair in front of you, you have a table in front of you, but if you disassemble it, it no longer remains to be table. Or the example of television kit. If you disassemble all the television components, there are hundreds of components in television. If you go on disassembling it, and then you can put it in a kit, what you call as television kit. The television kit is not a television, but it's a potentially television. If you put it into assembly properly according to circuit diagram, it will give you a thing like a television, and it becomes operative like television. So when you dismantle the parts, you don't call it in the name of whole. Like if you dismantle a table, it is not a table. If you dismantle a chair, it is not a chair. If you dismantle a car, it is not a car. If you dismantle a television, it's not a television. So, Patanjala's postulate that vasanas are assemblement of components. So if the components are dismantled, then it would not stay. So the vasanas are also having components. So I recall that sutra in the 4th chapter, Hetu Phalashre Alambanehi Sangrahitatvat Esham Abhave Tat Abhavaha. So the question is answered, how do vasanas go away? Abhava means absence. How will there be the absence of vasanas? So the process is to dismantle them. They are made up of certain components. If you dismantle the components, then they don't stand a reason to be declared as they are existing. So vasanas are coming together of these four components which Patanjali mentions, and their coming together gives them a form and shape. Like a television kit, if somebody is an engineer, he can open out the kit and go on assembling the parts properly according to circuit diagram, and then it will operate as a television. So is the case of car. A disassembled car can be assembled. Once it is assembled, it works as a car. A dismantled car can be assembled, and then when it is assembled, it runs as a car. So vasanas are assemblement of four factors. So what Adhyatma Paramartha Yoga does is that it dismantles the parts, so the whole is gone. The whole is Vasana. When dismantled in its components, then it doesn't work as Vasanas. So the first factor that is a component of Vasana is called Hetu. Hetu means cause. So Vasanas are effects. Although in our life we see Vasanas are the cause of every attitude, behavior and manifestation, mental manifestation in us, we see that Vasanas are cause. But actually Vasanas are themselves an effect, because there are certain components which I just now told you, they have to come together. So the first factor is called Hetu, and Hetu is the cause. What is the cause? Cause is avidya. And we have described and discussed avidya in the beginning of the second chapter as a klesha. So avidya is a cause. So it is first component. Avidya is the first component. It is of the nature of ajnanam, or it is of the nature of viparita dharana. That's how avidya, and we don't have to discuss it now. We have just done it in the beginning of the second chapter. But in brief, considering anitya as nitya, ashuchi as shuchi, dukkha as sukha, anatma as atma is avidya. So that is the cause, that's the hetu of vasanas. So vasanas have something underlying it, that is hetu, and that is avidya. So that is the first component of vasana, that is avidya. The second one is phala. The phala is bhoga apavarga. Bhoga apavargartha rupa phala purushartham is phala. So the bhoga means sukha dukkha moha, and because of sukha dukkha moha, pain, pleasure, delusion, we have certain things as our pravrittis and nivrittis. Our do's and don'ts depend upon our sukha dukkha moha. So when there is sukha, we go after it. When it is dukkha, we run away from it. So similarly about the moha, we might go after something behind which we should not go, or we don't go after something behind which we should go. That is moha. So that is the phala. Avidya gives rise to so many other kleshas and bondage potentials. So the purushartha is important, whether your purpose of life is to be in bhoga or to be in apavarga. So if you opt for bhoga, then the vasanas will continue to get strengthened and built up. But if you go for apavarga, if you go for moksha sadhana, if you make the moksha as the goal in your life, then you will be slowly going away from vasanas. So that is the phala, bhoga apavargartha. So either to go after daivi sampada or asuri sampada. So that is the phala aspect. And Patanjali also postulates in the second chapter, Krutartham Pratinashtam. If you are Krutartha, accomplished in your Parama Purushartha, then Vasanas are not there to vex you, torment you. They are almost destroyed. So the second factor is phala, that is bhoga apavargarthata. You must have either bhogarthata or apavargarthata. When you have only bhogarthata, you reinforce vasanas. When you have only apavargarthata, you can accomplish. You can never be accomplished in bhoga. Your thirst and hunger is never quenched for all times. It will repeatedly come up. But apavarga is something that you can be accomplished. And once you attain it, you don't need anything. So the purushartha is gone. And that is why it is called phala, the second component. The third one is ashraya. Ashraya means resort. What is the ashraya? What is the support for bhoga, apavarga? What is the support for dharma, adharma? What is the support for avidya or jnanam? That is chitta. It all happens in chitta. The chitta will get viveka or chitta will be in aviveka. The chitta will give dharma or chitta will give you adharma. It will motivate for dharma or it will motivate you for adharma. So the ashraya, the support, is chitta. And therefore vasanas, they try to remain parasites in chitta. Because they are their chitta is their support. And that's why the third component is called ashraya. And when the ashraya is gone, so with supportlessness, naturally vasanas would be supportless. If they are supportless, they would go towards extinction. So that's the third component. And the fourth component is alambanam. Alambanam is the entire objective world around us. Sthula, sukshma, aihika, paralaukika vishayas. These objects are the support. Because of the support, the alambana, the avidya is nurtured. Vasanas are nurtured. And therefore they play havoc. Imagine utopian idea here. If there are no objects at all around you, no gross object, no subtle objects, no whatsoever objects, no objects at all, how will the vasanas get the encouragement? So these supports which are of vishayas, shabdadi vishayas, aihik paralaukika vishayas, sthula sukshma vishayas, these vishayas are the alambanam. And these are four factors. Now if you dismantle four factors, vasana would not exist. As long as they are together in an assembly, vasanas would be functional, existent. But if you separate them, dismantle them, a vehicle, a car-like vehicle, completely dismantled, it doesn't work as car at all. Although it is potentially a car, it doesn't work as a car. And in case of all examples, we have seen that if they are dismantled, they don't remain what they are. They only become what they are when they are assembled properly. Now for this disembowelment, how do you disassemble? Because an engineer can dismantle the components of apparatus or an instrument or an object. But then what are the ways here to dismantle them? So the technology and the technicians are such as satsanga, sadhana sanga, shastra sanga, ahar, vihar, achar, vichar, niyamanam, rajatamo sanga tyaga, then adhering to yajna dana tapas, adhering to Sthula Sharira Sadhana, Sukshma Sharira Sadhana, Karana Sharira Sadhana, Nama Sadhana, Yoga Sadhana, Jnana Sadhana, Karma Sadhana, Bhakti Sadhana. They are the ones who do the dismantling job. Astikya Buddhi, Mumukshutva, Daivi Sampada, they work for disembowelment and dismantlement of these components. So once they are dismantled, vasanas don't exist as vasanas. Or in other words, of Adhyatma we are told Jnana Agni Sarva Karmani Bhasmasat Kuruta Rijana. There is something called Jnana Agni, something called as Yogagni. So these fires of yoga and jnana, they also dismantle the vasanas. And when they are dismantled, they are almost equal to non-existent. So that is how the vasanas are destructible, endable, although they are beginning less. So this topic has been also described in Yoga Shastra. So that was another point that was needed to be delineated upon. So when the mind is extraneous, outwardly going, then it goes on nourishing vasanas. But when the mind is going inwardly, internally, inwardliness, infacedness, what is called a spiritual endeavor, the mind goes inwardly. When the mind goes inwardly, then the disembowelment process sets in. And samskara sakshatkar would do this. When a mind is drawn inwardly, it takes us the one towards the root of all these manifestation in life. And therefore, we saw that dialogue between Jaigeshavyacharya and Avatya. So that's how the sagely person like Jaigeshavya could get liberation. And that it happened, he said, after 10 Mahasargas that he got liberated. But that is how the vasanas are managed and handled. So this was another topic that was needing a treatment, which we have done in today's session. So with that, we will be ending this session and ending the topic of vasanas, which are indeed endless. However, our delineation ends. So with that, we end this session. Namaskar all of you.